Hi there, this is Linda, and welcome to my channel. And welcome to my 5-part series on tips and tricks for Project Life. I have been doing Project Life for 13 years, and I have no intention of stopping. But I get so many questions frequently about how to make this process manageable, fun, and something that you want to continue doing year after year. So, welcome to my series where we talk about all of these things. This is part 2, and we're going to talk about design and how we design our spreads. Let's dive right in. Okay, let's talk about the fun stuff, design in your Project Life album. In my first step, or my first kind of easy tip for doing design in your album, is to simply work with a kit. Here you can see this spread was put together using a Stories by the Month kit from Ali Edwards, and pulling from that kit, everything already coordinates. There's enough supplies to create a full spread, and you have limited supplies to pull from, so you're not spending forever digging through your stash trying to figure out what you need to make the spread work. Here's another one. This is using a Cocoa Daisy kit. Again, you can see how there's easily repeated pieces across the spread. I also did a before and after here. I have a lot of different things that kind of all come together because I'm using a kit, and it brings the entire spread together. My second tip is to cut up your cards. So Project Life, if you're working in this type of style or pocket pages, comes with the accumulation of pocket cards. For example, here's a stack of 3x4 pocket cards that I have in my stash. If you have been a subscriber to kits or purchased core kits or purchased anything with these cards over time, you will easily find that you have more cards than you could ever use if you're just slipping them in the pockets. So my big tip is to cut those cards up. Whenever you're looking at cards, think about ways that you can cut them up. So here, for example, this Here Comes the Sun came from a card that I cut up and got to fit right here. Here is another example where I cut up a lot of cards, especially when they don't work for you. It is a great way to cut them up. So here, this had this November Stories on a 4x6 card. I didn't want a 4x6 card, so I cut it down and I made a filler card here, and I made my own journaling card here by cutting up those pieces and bringing them together to make them work for me. Here again is another example where I cut up cards. For this spread, I was working with an old Becky Higgins core kit, and those kits are perfect for cutting up the cards. Here I cut this out, this, I think these days of the week were cut out, the hooray, and this was cut out. These were cut out from cards. This was. So there's so many pieces here, all of these that were cut out from cards. Rather than using other embellishments, I just used cards from the kit to create all of my embellishments. So I just grabbed a stash of some of these Becky Higgins cards from my kit, or from my stash, and you can always do this with any kind of cards, but what I want you to be thinking about is when you look at a card, what can you cut out? So this is very easily, you can cut around this text and make an embellishment like that. You could cut a strip here to have a rectangle with the text in it. You could cut it like this and make a square. There are a lot of ways that you could cut that card to make it work for you. Let's go to another one. So this stripe one probably isn't a great one to cut up, but you could. But then this side, we have this little flag. You can cut this flag out and make it an embellishment like this on one of your photos or cards. Let's see, here's another one. This one, you can cut around these rectangles and create your own journaling blocks. You don't have to keep them centered. If you cut them out, you can put them all left aligned or right aligned. You can cut out this need to get away and just make that into like a word phrase strip. You can have all of these together, or you can use just bits and pieces. Here's another one. You can cut out the little camera and use that as an embellishment. You can cut out the word snapshots and make a word phrase strip, or you can cut this entire thing out. You could punch it into a circle and use that as an embellishment. So what I really want to encourage you to do is every time you get a kit, every time you see cards, think, is this a card I want to keep whole, or is this a card I could potentially cut up? And if it is a card that you could cut up, think about if you want to. If it is a card that doesn't really work for you in its form that it is, that form that it comes in, you can think to yourself, is there a way I can cut this card up to make it work for me? Okay, so my next design tip is the idea of using a repeated element to tie your entire spread together. I think when people first started the pocket page layouts, they were thinking of each pocket as an individual scrapbook page and a scrapbook layout. You can definitely approach this project that way. If you do though, it is going to be extremely time consuming because if you're looking at, say, the spread here, you've got 12 pockets on this side and 9 on this side. If those are all individual layouts, you've got 21 individual layouts that you need to put together just to do one spread. That is extremely time consuming. However, if instead you look at this entire page as one layout and think of things that you can do to repeat across the spread, it will come together much more quickly. On this spread here, I have these tags, which I don't think I cut them out. I think they were already cut out, but I added them on top of background papers. The ones that didn't fit on the smaller cards, I cropped off the bottom to make them fit. And I added them on various pattern papers, and this was a piece of ephemera from the week. And I used them as a repeated element to document my story across the spread. Here is another example of repeated elements across the spread. On this side, I cut out these Remember This bubbles and I added them all onto this yellow pattern paper in a pattern with photos. And then on this side, I have these days of the week circles punched out and put them each on a photo from each day. And that helped the spread come together super quickly because I have this repeated element that I'm just creating over and over again to fill the pockets. So my next tip is to create your own elements, which is something that's super fun about Project Life, and it can make this much more time consuming, but it doesn't have to. You don't have to do this all the time. What I did here was I took some cardstock from my stash and I picked 3 colors that coordinated with this kit, and then I heat embossed the stamp Currently to create this pattern on each of these cards. Then you can see I've used some of the same design elements that I have already talked about. I have these 3 tags that I cut out of a Project Life card that was probably a 4x6, and I put them each on those cards that I created, so I have this repeated element across my spread. The next thing I want to say is break the rules in Project Life. If you are someone who's struggling with this project, you find it too restricting or not restricting enough, there are no rules. So what I wanted to point out here is I do weekly Project Life. However, if you look here, this is February 11th through February 16th. That is not a week. That's okay. It doesn't matter. I just decided that these were the dates I was in the Dominican Republic and I want that vacation to be a spread. So this one here had a little bit fewer days and this one had, I guess a few more days just to get myself back on track with the weeks, but it's okay. You can break the rules. There are no rules. You don't need to have, specific numbered. I know a lot of people who do this are like, what number week are we on? Are we on week 14? Or, what week is this? There's no rules. It doesn't really matter. Use the dates that matter to you and it will flow so much more easily. Now, if you do really like the rigid numbered weeks, totally fine. Feel free to do that. But if it is being restricted for you and making it hard to focus or create your spreads, let it go. It doesn't matter. Okay, my next design tip is to bring in ephemera. This is something that I really, really love about Project Life is it's a home for all of that ephemera. So here I have this tag from some socks. I have a movie ticket and I have a sticker from a restaurant that I went to. And I just put them all on here, create this little collage, stitched this design on here, and had that as a way to bring ephemera into my album. Collecting ephemera is super, super fun. I would suggest having kind of an inbox for your ephemera, similar to an inbox for your stories and your photos, like I talked about in previous videos. What I tend to do for my ephemera is I either put it in a tray with my kit. So For example, here is my June 2024 Stories by the Month kit. At the time I'm filming this, I have not yet documented June. And so I have just a bunch of ephemera thrown in here that I collected throughout the month of June because I'm going to put it on the ephemera card. Oh, that's not it. I thought it was right there. So in 2024, the Stories by the Month kits came with cards that look like this, which I am adding ephemera onto those. So I have it like that. If you don't want it to be stored with your kit, another thing you can do is as you're setting up your weeks in your album in advance, you can put a pocket in here. So just like a cheap 8.5 by 11 page protector in the middle, and put your ephemera in the correct week so that it's all there ready for you when you're ready to put that together. If you want more ideas about that, that's in my introduction to Project Life video. So I would definitely recommend checking that one out to get some initial tips before going through all of these videos in this series of Project Life tips. Okay, so another tip I have, oh, here's another piece of ephemera you can see, is to add large titles. I really, really love going big and bold in here. So here I stamped, I got a promotion. I ran and did Pilates and I baked challah. Now it's hard to see because there's an insert here, but this is all one spread, and that big bold text across it really kind of gives you the highlights of what happened that week without having to really dig in or read any further. You can just look at the one spread and see all of those highlights instantly. And you don't have to do stamping. You can print it. You can use alpha stickers. This is a great way to use up those thickers if you still have a bunch of thickers in your stash, to add just some huge text. If you don't want to take up 4x6 spots, you can do it in the 3x4s. You can make it the text go the opposite direction, so it's like reading like this, so you'd have to turn the page to see it if you want that longer space. Okay, so the next design tip I have is to do a uniform style across your spread. So this is just one example, but where you've come up with a formula for a card and just do that same treatment across the spread. It makes the spread look really cohesive. It brings it together really easily. And it's just a fun break from looking at other spreads that are, a mix of cards. It's fun to have one that is very uniform in there to break up the style. Okay, so my last one is to challenge yourself to use specific products. Project Life for me is so much fun because each week is a new opportunity to try something new. For this weekly spread, I pulled out a stamp set, and I don't know where that stamp set is right now, or I would show it to you, but it is a 6x8 stamp set, and you can see it's got all these various circles and numbers. That is the only thing I used on this entire spread. Besides a couple of pieces of cardstock, I have mostly white, a couple color ones. Everything else was that stamp set. And I used that to embellish my entire spread. And it was totally fun, and I love the way it turned out. This is a great way to challenge yourself. Challenge yourself to use washi tape and come up with a spread that's using a bunch of washi tape, or a specific stamp set like I did here. Challenge yourself to use up a pad of stickers. Whatever products in your stash you want to use, you can challenge yourself to do that on a spread and then move on to the next. And it's just one small spread in an entire album of stories. I hope that this video gave you lots of tips and ideas for design in your album. And I hope that it has inspired you to go dig into your stash and get creating in your Project Life albums. Thank you guys so much for being here. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. And as always, I hope to see you guys all in the next one. Thanks. Bye.